They say revenge is a dish best served cold. I learned that Christmas Eve, standing barefoot in the snow outside my own front door, watching my husband of 37 years toast champagne with a woman young enough to be his daughter. My name is Catherine Morrison, and at 63 years old, I thought I knew exactly who I was. The devoted wife of investment banker Robert Morrison. The woman who had sacrificed her architectural career to support his ambitions. The foundation upon which the Morrison empire had been built, even if my name wasn't on any of the deeds. That snowy December evening started like any other Christmas Eve in our Beacon Hill brownstone. I had been preparing for hours, arranging orchids, polishing silver, ensuring every detail was perfect for our annual holiday gathering. Everything was exactly as it should be, just as it had been for decades. When Robert's key turned in the lock at 5:30, I felt surprised and pleased. Perhaps this year would be different. But Robert didn't enter alone. She walked in behind him as if she owned the place, her stiletto heels clicking against our hardwood floors. Everything about her screamed expensive and temporary. The designer coat, the perfectly straight blonde hair, the confident smile of someone who had never been denied anything. Her name was Sophia, 28 years old. A junior associate at Robert's firm who had clearly decided that sleeping her way to the top was viable. Robert didn't even look at me as he helped her out of her coat. When he finally met my eyes, there was nothing but cold determination. "Catherine," he said, his voice carrying the tone he used to fire employees. "We need to talk." The conversation that followed was brutally efficient. Robert had been planning this for months. The divorce papers were already filed. Our joint accounts were frozen. The house would remain his. I had 30 minutes to pack whatever I could carry. Sophia stood beside him, occasionally checking her phone with bored impatience. "But this is my home," I whispered. "Our home. We built this life together." Robert's laugh was sharp. "You were never a partner, Catherine. You were staff. Very good staff, but staff nonetheless. And now I'm making personnel changes." The words hit like physical blows. 37 years reduced to a performance review. Sophia finally spoke. "Don't make this harder than it has to be. Robert has been generous. Many women your age would be grateful." Something inside me snapped. I picked up a crystal paperweight and hurled it at the fireplace. It shattered with a satisfying crash. "You want me gone? Fine. But don't you dare pretend this is civilized." I walked upstairs to pack with shaking legs. In 20 minutes, I was back downstairs with my suitcase. Robert and Sophia had made themselves comfortable, drinking the wine I had decanted for Christmas Eve. "This won't end the way you think it will," I said quietly. Robert's expression hardened. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm simply observing that actions have consequences. You're about to learn that the foundation you've been standing on was more important than you realized." The door closed behind me with finality that echoed in my bones. Standing in the falling snow, something unexpected happened. The crushing weight of grief began to lift, replaced by something harder. Robert had assumed that because I had been quiet, I was weak. He was about to learn how wrong he was. I called my son James. It was nearly midnight on the West Coast, but he answered immediately. "Mom? What's wrong?" I told him everything. James listened without interruption, though I could hear him pacing. "I've been waiting for this call for 2 years," he said finally. "What do you mean?" "I hired a private investigator last Christmas. Dad's been sloppy. The investigator has photos, financial records, emails. I was waiting for you to be ready. I'm ready now." "Good. Because we're going to destroy him." The next morning, James had flown east and was waiting in my hotel lobby. Over coffee, he spread out a folder that would have made Robert sick. Bank statements showing transfers to Sophia's accounts. Hotel receipts from weekend trips. Email chains proving the affair had lasted over a year. But deeper in the folder was the real treasure. Documentation of Robert's financial irregularities. Questionable investments. Funds moved in ways that skirted legality. Clients advised to make decisions benefiting Robert's portfolio over their own. Your father has been very busy and very careless, James said. This could destroy more than his marriage. For 37 years, I had never asked uncomfortable questions about Robert's business practices. My willful blindness had made me complicit. But now, my silence had protected him for the last time. We need to be smart about this, I said. If we're going to bring him down, we need to do it right. The plan was elegant. James would use his journalism contacts to expose Robert's questionable practices. I would focus on divorce proceedings, armed with evidence that would terrify Robert's lawyers. I spent the week after Christmas quietly reaching out to my network, the charity boards where I had volunteered, the museum trustees, the wives of Robert's colleagues, who had become genuine friends. Robert had been telling people I was having a breakdown, trying to isolate me. But he had underestimated my relationships. These women knew my character. Several had their own suspicions about their husbands' dealings. By New Year's, I had a support network Robert never saw coming. The divorce proceedings began in January. Robert's lawyers came out swinging with prenuptial agreements designed to minimize my settlement. They painted me as a dependent spouse who had contributed little. My lawyer told a different story. She presented evidence of my contributions to Robert's career, the networking, the clients I had helped him win, the charity work that enhanced his reputation. More importantly, she presented evidence of Robert's infidelity and financial misconduct, offshore accounts not properly disclosed, conflicts of interest violating ethics policies, investment advice that cost friends money while enriching him. Robert's confident facade began cracking. The turning point came in February when James's Wall Street Journal article was published. The Hidden Costs of Success: How One Boston Investment Manager Built His Fortune, exposed Robert's questionable practices and his firm's culture of corruption. Within hours, Robert's phone was ringing constantly. Reporters, clients, partners. His world was unraveling. The SEC launched an investigation. Clients filed lawsuits. The Attorney General opened a fraud inquiry. His firm placed him on administrative leave. In March, I received an unexpected call from Sophia. She was crying, panicked. She had been fired, her apartment repossessed, credit cards canceled. Robert won't return my calls, she sobbed. I thought maybe you could talk to him. The woman who had lectured me about gratitude was begging for help. I'm sorry, Sophia, but I can't help you. Robert is no longer my responsibility, and neither are you. The final divorce hearing was scheduled for late spring. Robert looked hollow-eyed and desperate. His empire was crumbling. The SEC had frozen accounts. His firm faced scrutiny. Former clients had won significant settlements. The judge ruled our prenuptial agreement void due to fraud. She awarded me 50% of everything, including the Beacon Hill house. She ordered Robert to pay my legal fees and provide significant spousal support. As we left the courthouse, Robert tried one last appeal. Catherine, please. We can work this out. Think about James. Think about our family. I looked at this man I had loved for nearly 4 decades and felt only tired pity. I did think about James. I thought about the kind of father he deserved. You weren't any of those things, Robert. You never were. The house felt different when I moved back in. Larger, filled with possibility instead of obligation. I changed the locks, donated Robert's formal furniture, and replaced it with pieces reflecting my taste. The garden became my sanctuary. I planted wild flowers instead of controlled arrangements. I installed a fountain where I could sit and listen to water instead of complaints. James visited often, proud but worried. Are you happy, Mom? I'm becoming myself again, I said. I had forgotten who that person was. The settlement provided more security than I'd ever had. I went back to architecture school part-time. I traveled to places Robert had never wanted to visit. I volunteered with organizations that mattered to me. Most importantly, I began trusting my own judgment again. For so many years, I had deferred to Robert's opinions, convinced his business success made him smarter about everything. No more. Robert's legal consequences continued unfolding. The SEC investigation resulted in significant fines and a permanent industry ban. Civil lawsuits further depleted his resources. His reputation was destroyed beyond repair. I felt no satisfaction in his downfall. What I felt was complex relief and sadness for the man he might have been. The first Christmas after our divorce was the most peaceful in years. James came home, and we decorated together without considering Robert's preferences. We cooked meals we enjoyed, instead of ones designed to impress. On Christmas Eve, exactly 1 year after Robert had thrown me out, I stood in the same living room where my old life had ended. Now it was decorated with garland I had chosen, filled with books I wanted to read, arranged according to my own sense of beauty. I poured myself wine, the same vintage Robert and Sophia had been drinking while I packed. This time I was toasting something different. Not the end of a marriage, but the beginning of a life I was finally free to live on my own terms. That winter taught me something I wish I had learned decades earlier. That love and respect are not the same thing. That supporting someone's dreams should not require abandoning your own. That loyalty, when not reciprocated, becomes self-betrayal. I had spent 37 years trying to be the perfect wife, measuring my worth by Robert's success. I had been so focused on keeping him happy that I forgot to consider whether I was happy myself. But storms eventually pass. Sometimes, in their aftermath, you discover you are stronger than you ever knew. That you can not only survive betrayal, but rebuild something better from the wreckage. As I sit here now in my garden, 2 years after that snowy Christmas Eve, I am not the same woman who stood shivering outside her own home. That woman was broken by loss. This woman was forged by it. Robert Morrison thought he was discarding staff when he threw me out that night. What he was actually doing was setting me free. Free to discover who Catherine Morrison really was, beneath all those years of trying to be who someone else needed me to be. And it turns out, she was someone worth getting to know.